Okay, so this is Thursday night after my first day at Adrenaline RC, getting ready for the Vintage Off-Road Nationals for the 2024 race. Um, I took an extra day off to travel down here because getting to Virginia from New York, from where I live, is about a 6-hour drive. So, I under normal conditions, I wouldn't have been able to make it here in time to make like all of open practice on Friday. So I figured I would take the Thursday off as well, just to get down here. And one benefit of that is that Adrenaline's hours are different from what RC Excitement had. At RC Excitement, they would open up a little earlier, but they would also close earlier at like 5 p.m. Um, but here, they during normal business hours, they open at, I think it's 2 p.m., but they stay open until 8 p.m. So I left in the morning and I got here at around 4 o'clock, a little after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had about 4 hours to, uh, you know, do some practice. Um, Now it's not a full day. The full practice day is tomorrow, but still it's extra time. And I figured, um, it would definitely be worth using that time and taking advantage of it, especially since this is a new track to me. I've never raced on this surface before. So having those extra hours is going to be really beneficial. So what did I do? Well, first thing, the video I made a while back about what cars I was going to bring, I basically brought more than that. Um, for the past couple of years, I've been making a list of cars I want to bring to race with, and I made that list because I had gotten used to packing a limited amount of stuff. Because for a couple of years, I was traveling with my wife and my kid. Well, at the time, just my son before my daughter was born. And we had to fit all of their stuff in the car too. That meant less space for me to fit my parts and my tools and my cars. So I had to make a much more limited list. Now I can travel by myself, so I can basically fill the car with my stuff. So for two-wheel drive buggy, I brought four two-wheel drive buggies. I bought three four-wheel drive buggies. I brought three classic four-wheel drive buggies. Right? I brought a bunch of stuff. So today I figured I would start with the classic four-wheel drive buggy and then two-wheel drive buggy. And the reason for that is because of the new track. I understand it's on the looser side, so I figured I'd start with one of the four-wheel drive buggies and just to get a feel for the track. And then once I got comfortable with that, I would go to two-wheel buggy. So for classic four-wheel buggy, what did I run? I tried my Tamiya Top Force. I tried my Schumacher Cat 2000 and my Kyosho Laser ZX-RR. Now, any one of those cars would do just fine on this track. But because of the limited time I have, I can't come here every day. I basically pick a baseline setup for each of those cars, and I might play with it a little bit. Maybe a little bit on roll center or camber gain, a little bit on ride height, things like that, but nothing crazy like shock settings or anything. And just run each car with the tires I have and see what works best or least bad. I've been doing the same thing for the past couple of years. So what I found was for those three on this day, the Top Force, after a little bit of tuning, seemed to do okay, actually. It wasn't bad. Um, if anything, it was a little on the slower side. I could probably address that with some gearing or timing. And I could probably benefit from putting some cooling in there on probably on the motor. Um, but maybe with a bit more work, that could actually be a promising car. But I don't want to put too much time into that because I have to move on to other classes. So okay, I kind of put that aside as like a number two. Um, the ZX-RR was actually very fast. Um, Again, needed a bit of tuning because the track here is loose compared to RC Excitement, which was much higher grip. And so the roll center you need to use is different. The ride heights are different. Even like the shock stiffness is different. But nonetheless, uh, you know, driving through the setup imperfections, it was very quick. But the other problem I had with it was that the front belt was starting to skip, and the motor was getting really hot. When I took it off, the motor was at something like 220 degrees or 230 degrees. It was super hot. Um, so definitely needs cooling. And the belt tensioner or the roller that I had set up on that car needs some work. So okay, I put that aside, and I ran the Cat 2000. I actually ran that first, and then I came back around to it afterwards, and I found that to be the most natural. Um, it can handle bumps a bit better. It just feels like any undulations on the track, it just sort of glides over them more readily with the setup that it has compared to the Top Force and the Laser with the setups that they have right now. Um, I also tried different tires. This is a clay track, so I tried Proline MC Suburbs. I tried J Concepts ellipses in super soft, or yeah, green compound super soft, and I also have some M4 electrons that I tried across these three different cars. And I found that, at least for today, the M4 electrons worked just about as well as the clay compound tires. If anything, the electrons were slightly better because the track was it was a practice session, so the track wasn't being blown off or swept, every couple of minutes. So when it's dustier like that, I would tend to think electrons would work better as a shallow pin tire. But no matter, I'm settled on using the Cat 2000 this year for classic four-wheel buggy, and then I have to go back and do some more homework on cleaning up some things with the Laser ZXRR and making some improvements to the Top Force. Maybe there will be enough time tomorrow or through the weekend to do a bit more work on the Top Force, and do a final comparison between that and the Cat 2000. But the Laser is out for this year at least. Um, so that covers those cars. And in terms of what I had to do to the setups, generally, I had to lower the ride heights a little bit. I found that on corner exit, the rear of any of my cars wants to break loose. When I get on power on corner exit, the rear is rolling a bit and wants to break loose. So when you're on a slippery track, that's a difficult thing to nail down because you would think, all right, well, if I want to reduce roll on corner exit, right, power is going to the rear and to the outside as you're still turning the car and getting on power, so the weight is transferring to the outside rear. So you would want like more anti-squat or a stiffer rear or a lower would it be lower? Sorry, a higher rear roll center to limit roll. But all of those things would tend to make the car slide more on a low grip track. So it's a balancing act between making it not roll so much and not making it slide. So one thing you could do is run a softer rear shock with more geometric anti-roll to address the roll, or you can go the other way and run a slightly stiffer shock with more geometric roll. So that would be like a lower roll center, like a low grip setup. So I'm tending towards the latter right now with a lower ride height to bring the center of gravity down in the hopes that that would help to calm the rear down on corner exit. That seems to do okay. Okay enough for me to be able to drive around it. And I noticed the same thing on two-wheel buggy, especially for the rear motor cars, because there's all that weight in the back. So, after I kind of settled down with the Cat 2000, I went to the two-wheel buggies. I brought 4 two-wheel drive buggies. So I brought the Kyosho Pro X, Kyosho Triumph, Traxxas TRX3, and the Mid-Motor Losi Double X. I started off with the Pro X. I started off with the Triumph. And on all of these cars, by the way, I had to drop the rear ride height, especially on the rear, but a little bit on the front, mostly on the rear, and play around with the battery placement. And what else did I have to do? That was about it. I haven't done much with rear hub carrier placement or camber link placement, because on rear motor buggies, changing the camber link location, the ball stud location on the inside on the bulkhead is a pain in the ass. Doing it on the left side is generally easier than on the right side where the spur gear is in the way. I don't want to take the slipper off and the spur gear off to change the ball stud location. I'm just kind of lazy like that. So I'd rather find other ways to address handling issues without having to change the ball stud location. But anyway, the Pro X was actually doing quite nicely. If I move the battery all the way forward, it's a little too unstable on corner entry for the grip level that the track has. So I actually had to move the battery a little bit rearward to kind of balance that out. I noticed a significant difference between using a standard shorty pack, a 4.2 amp hour pack, and a thin shorty pack, a 3 amp hour pack. The difference in weight is noticeable on that car and the effect that it has on making the rear roll more. So I'm going to have to go to, most likely if I use that car, the shorter 3 amp hour pack. And then with the Triumph, I did the same thing, use the 3 amp hour pack, because for that car, the way I have the electronics mounted, it's partly my own fault, the battery gets pushed all the way forward. Now, for that particular car, the rear tends to be heavier, so it kind of balances out. And the Triumph did handle very nicely. And the way that track layout is, the jumps are not aggressive at all. It's a very smooth flowing track layout. So that would work well for the Triumph. I just need to do a little bit more work to address that rear rolling on corner exit. I'm still thinking about how exactly I want to do it on that car. And that's going to be one of the first things I do tomorrow when I go in for open practice on Friday. So far the Triumph looks good. The Pro X looks pretty good. I did break a rear universal joint. The Pro X universal joints tend to be a weak spot on the hole where the drive pin goes through. I've done this multiple times. I think I've broken 2 wheel axles over the years. So I broke another one. So I replaced that, brought it back on the track, and it felt pretty good. And then when I tried the TRX3, that didn't feel great at all. Not because it's a bad car, it's just the setup that I had for it wasn't the right setup. I think I have too much pack in the shocks, which would have been fine for RC excitement, but over here I need the shocks to be more plush. And I just don't have that right now on that car. So rather than spend time on it, I'm just going to put it aside and focus on the other cars. I tried the mid-motor XX. That thing actually drives really nicely. I was impressed. I want to use a rear motor buggy this year. And I'm still undecided as to whether it'll be the Triumph or the Pro X. But I'm delighted, or let's say pleased, to say that the mid-motor XX is actually a viable option. Needs a little bit of work. I don't particularly like the narrow front tires. That did make the car push a lot on one of the sections of the track. On most of the track it was fine, but there's a particular corner where it would always tend to run wide. So, okay, maybe some of that's driving, but it seemed to be specific to that car. So, okay, in terms of lap times, they were all putting in similar lap times. So it's really just a matter of what I can be the most consistent with. Frankly, the mid-motor XX, I could probably be the most consistent with it. But I need to do a bit more work on those 3 cars tomorrow. I'm not quite settled yet on which one I'm going to use. So tomorrow, for Friday open practice, I can focus more for the whole day on 2-wheel drive buggy and 4-wheel drive buggy, the 10.5 turn 4-wheel drive buggy cars, for which I brought the ZXS Evolution, the X Factory X5, and of course my Yokomo YZ10. And then I'll just do a couple of runs with the RC10T2 just to make sure the stadium truck is working and it doesn't drive too bad. So that I think having today helps because I can get classic 4-wheel drive buggy out of the way. That's kind of settled for me now. And I could focus more on the other classes. and I also have a bit of an idea of what I want to do with two-wheel drive buggy. So that's where I am right now. I think, yeah, first thing tomorrow, try to sort out the two-wheel drive buggies maybe for a couple of hours, and then go to the four-wheel drive buggies and see how those do. Um, I'm still not sure entirely about tires. I didn't notice that much of a difference between using M4 Electrons or MC Suburbs or uh, green ellipses. I don't. I think I may have tried silver ellipses on one of the cars. Not that much of a difference in grip between all of them. I tried with and without traction compound. Didn't really make a difference. I think again because the track for the day wasn't blown off. It was dusty for most of the day, so it's not the condition to really like highlight differences between compound and tread. Um, so if you're coming on in any year to this track, in my personal opinion, it shouldn't really matter whether you use clay compound or super soft, as long as you have a shallow pin tread like an Electron or a dirt web, or a bar type tread like a suburb or an ellipse, or a positron or whatever. They should all work okay. Um, the car setup, the suspension setup is going to matter a lot more, it seems, on this track. Um, so yeah, that's it for now, and I'm going to get back to it tomorrow morning. I didn't make any recordings of any of the runnings today because again, I was just trying to focus on figuring out the track, figuring out the setups, what cars I want to use. It'll probably be the same thing tomorrow. I don't plan on making any recordings for the Friday open practice because I really need to focus on just doing the homework, figuring out the cars, and down selecting. I'm going to start recording my runs, qualifiers, races on Saturday. Yeah, so that's it for now. Thanks for watching.